Hello, everyone. So today I have a student from UCLA. Her name is Rina. And Rina, can you go ahead and please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Rina. I'm rising third year and I'm a global studies and history major.
All right, awesome. Perfect. And so I guess, first and foremost, you mentioned you're studying global studies and history. So I guess, could you explain what made you interested in studying that specific field?
For global studies, I grew up in two countries. I was born and raised in Korea, and I moved to the States when I was 11. So I have some global perspectives. So I thought it was a great idea to share my experience and apply that to my study. And for history, I was always interested in learning how people in the past lived, and I love reading about like women's history. And I also took a class my freshman year about labor studies, and it really interested me, so that's how I decided to add one.
All right, yeah, that's really interesting. And just curious for me, what is your plans like after undergraduate to do with that specific field? Are you planning to go pre-law or graduate school, or just planning to go ahead and work in a field?
I'm planning to go to law school, but I'm planning to work like 3 to 4 years before.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, law school is pretty expensive, so most people
Yeah.
take the time to do other things first. Yeah, that's great. Now, so like we mentioned, just an introduction that you're currently going to be a third year student at UCLA. But from our conversations, you mentioned that you actually started your first 2 years at UC Santa Barbara and then
Yeah.
eventually transferred to UCLA. So I guess I'll ask this in a couple parts. So first and foremost, I guess what made you decide in your freshman year or incoming freshman year to attend UC Santa Barbara first?
So I went to high school in Boston, and the East Coast is very different. And I actually went to camp in California like my junior year, and I really, really enjoyed being in California. So um, going to school in California was always my dream, and I luckily I got into like a lot of UCs, and I was like, I should I should pursue my dream and go to California to go to college. And UCSB seems like a good fit for anyone who's like looking for good social life and academics. And also, I love the campus by looking at the virtual tour. So that's how I decided to attend UCSB.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think it's really interesting because usually for, UC schools, you typically hear about in-state California students mainly
Yeah.
wanting to attend, but the fact that you're out of state, I think that was really interesting. Now, obviously, like we mentioned, you recently just transferred and are now going to be attending UCLA or, whatever we consider attending in this quarantine situation. But what made you decide to transfer to UCLA?
So the camp I attended my junior year was at UCLA. So I really enjoyed being there, and UCLA was my dream school since a long time ago, and it was my parents' dream school too. And also, at first, my parents didn't like me like when decided to attend UCSB because of the reputation. And you know, as a person who grew up in a very strict Asian family, they really expected to attend some like very prestigious school. So I kind of made a deal because they wanted me to choose BU instead of UCSB because it was more name valued, I guess.
Mm,
So
okay.
yeah, so I made a promise that I'm first gonna go to school that I want to go, and then I'll just transfer to the more prestigious school, and I happened to get into UCLA, so
Yeah.
which is
I mean,
really
yeah,
nice.
yeah, obviously, I mean, congrats on transferring to UCLA. It's definitely not the easiest thing in the world. So, obviously, yeah, congrats on that. And I was just curious. You mentioned that, and there's nothing to diss on UCSB. It's still a great school, but you mentioned there was like some, certain preconception that your parents had, or like
Yeah.
whatever. I guess a lot of probably Asian American families or Asian
Mhm.
families thought about it. So I'm just curious to know what was like kind of the preconceived notion that your parents or other people around you had about UCSB, that you could maybe,
Um,
yeah, not
it was
really.
primarily just the party school reputation that like my parents didn't like, and you know, they just wanted me to go to more like prestigious name value school because my parents live in Asian country. Like my dad lived in China and my mom lived in Korea, and in these countries, UCLA is just more well known, and they they've never heard of UCSB before I applied there, so that's another reason.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, prestige is a pretty um, noticeable thing. I think in Asian families, not, Asian and Asian American families, they always consider. I know the Ivy Leagues are like the big ones too. Like
Mhm.
gotta go to like Harvard, MIT. It's like it's not even like a stereotype anymore. It's like pretty known among a lot of
Mhm.
Asian students about it. Yeah, and I'm just curious. Obviously you mentioned that you grew up in Korea and you also grew up in the States. Have you ever considered applying to college in Korea, or were you just focused on the States?
I've actually never thought of applying to school in Korea because the reason I moved to America was because I didn't like the education system of Korea. It's really strict and it's really stressful. Everyone studies 24/7. So I actually applied to a couple of schools in Hong Kong and Singapore,
Yeah.
but not Korea.
Okay, interesting. No, I agree with you on that. I mean, being half Korean, I'm pretty familiar. They have like I know I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but like the Suning exam, there's like that one
Mhm.
really big exam that basically determines what colleges you can apply to stuff. And I'm not surprised. I know being at USC, I have a lot of international friends who are from Korea that came over because of that reason too. They went to like international schools. So yeah, it definitely is a stricter system. So I don't blame you in wanting to apply to schools in the States. But yeah, no, that's great. So I think now before we continue to talk more about like UCLA and UCSB, I
Mhm.
want to probably take a step back to maybe whatever you can remember from your senior year of high school. So back when we were like college application process,
Mhm.
and I guess first and foremost, how would you summarize your college application process?
It was stressful, honestly. Like I applied to 21 schools and
Oh wow.
also three different countries. It was really, really overwhelming. I had to write a lot of essays and I had to talk to my guidance counselor basically every day, and I had to look for more colleges to apply to because I wanted more safety and targeting school than reach school. So yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense. And I guess, to follow up on that, obviously you've already mentioned that you applied to also international schools, three different countries. Um,
yeah.
Not many students, that I know of, like if they're within the States, they just apply to schools in the States.
Mhm.
For you, what would you say was like the biggest like differences between, applying to school in the United States versus applying to, Hong Kong or Singapore?
Um, so I remember for Hong Kong University, we had a choice of choosing like three majors and then like first choice, second choice, and third choice. And, whichever we get into, we just get into that major. And also, I think the essay was more like in Asian school was more like related to the school itself and why I want to go to that school. But the essay in the States schools in the States are very more like self-related and like self-experience driven. So yeah, I barely remember actually the application process of Singapore actually because I only applied to one school and I wasn't that interested in going.
Okay,
So
makes
yeah,
sense. Did you have to take any, I know for like international students wanting to study in the US, they have to take like the TOEFL exam. Was there any
yeah.
exam that you had to take for, going to applying to Hong Kong or Singapore that you know of?
Um, they require some standardized testing, so I just took SAT and I also took TOEFL as an international student.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I think yeah, because I'm not too familiar. I remember never hearing about what the TOEFL exam was until I had sweet mates who were from Taiwan and like China. They told me about the TOEFL exam. I was like,
Yeah.
the SAT was enough. I didn't want to do it anything more than that. But yeah, obviously, you mentioned you applied to like 21 schools, both
Yeah.
international and state. That's a lot. So kudos to you for that. I think I applied to like 14, but like one of them was a UC application, so it was just one. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But for the schools you apply to, obviously it's going to require a lot of research. So for you,
Mhm.
how did the research process go in terms of finding information for these schools?
I actually started researching for colleges when I was in middle school
Oh
because
wow.
yeah, it's just, my atmosphere, like everyone was expecting me to go to a really good school because I was the first one in my family to actually move to the States to study and they had really big expectation for me. So, at first I was looking up some liberal arts college because I was more interested in you know, that small school atmosphere, but I ended up in really big school because, you know, I just liked I just wanted to experience the bigger school environment because my middle and high school was only like comprised like 200 students, and we only had like 40 senior class. So wait, what was the question? Sorry, I
Oh
lost
yeah,
track.
just referring to like the research process and in
Oh
general,
yeah, yeah.
like yeah, what you thought about it.
So yeah, at first I just looked up some good liberal arts school, like the highly ranked liberal arts school, and then I looked at their virtual tours and flyers to see which schools are a good fit for me. And then for safety schools, I there's one school called Babson. It was on the way to school, so I always like passed by. So I was like, oh, might as well just fly here because it's a really good business program. And same with BU, and it was always around me. So I was like, oh, I should apply there. And yeah, for other schools in the East Coast like New York and Syracuse, it was just my parents just recommended me to apply. So I didn't do that much research on other East Coast colleges because I wasn't that interested. And my
Oh,
whole point was going to California.
okay, so you would, I would say you'd put more attention towards like the West Coast, like California schools.
Yeah.
Okay.
For UCs, I did more research on it. I Googled because I already know this, like what those schools are. So I just did more research on it by
Yeah,
Googling.
no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have like family members or friends telling you like, oh, apply to this school or apply to this, and we're just like, nah, just do it for the heck of it. But yeah, I definitely agree. Like, if you're really interested in school, it you'll be a lot more passionate about like researching for it and
Mhm.
whatnot. But yeah, I think another thing I want to talk about is time management because, like you said, 21 schools, that's a lot of schools and a lot of essays to write up. So, how did you time manage between, balancing college applications, academic workload, and, your extracurriculars that you were participating
So basically, I went to the guidance counselor basically every day after school.
in? Mm,
So that kind of helped, and also I kind of spend most of my Thanksgiving holiday weekend working on UC essays, and then after I'm done with UC essays, since they're just their due dates are just earlier, I use my entire winter break to plan on other schools because they're mostly due like I think it was due in like February-ish.
okay.
And some of the
Yeah.
schools are due before I just worked on it like on the way.
Okay. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think it's great that at least for you, you had a guidance counselor because I think having that person kind of both keep you in check and kind of help you pace like
Yeah.
your workload. It definitely helps, especially since sometimes I would say high school students are the most responsible people. We just kind of like wing our way through and everything. So it would definitely help to have someone like that. So yeah, it's great to hear. I think just to wrap up kind of the college application aspect of it,
Mhm.
um, you know, if you could go back to senior year and redo the process, what would you have done differently?
I actually I would have focused more on my senior year academics because I was waitlisted in one of the colleges, and if I focused more on the academics and my GPA like stayed higher, then I would have gone in. So and also I just I still procrastinate, but I wouldn't procrastinate much because like I said, I wrote all my essay throughout like winter break, and that was like a week before I submitted some of my application. So it was a big rush. So
Yeah, no, and I definitely agree with that. I mean, time management is one thing I think, especially since you're balancing so many other things, it's hard to figure out when to work on the essays to actually fill the applications out. And then on top of that, senior year grades they do matter a lot more than I thought they were going to. Like first semester is going to be rough because you have so many things going on. But then,
yeah.
and second semester you might need them just in case to help, like say, oh hey, here's how I got my grades up. But then almost everyone gets like senioritis, and they just kind of stop
Mhm.
caring
Yeah.
second semester. So that's another thing. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with those advice. So I think it's a really good kind of like self-reflection on that. I think let's transition a little bit more to kind of what you've been doing in college. Obviously, specifically UCSB, since at UCLA there hasn't been much you've been able to do yet, and with COVID, it's kind of
Mhm.
iffy on what we can do this year. But back when you were in UCSB, what were some extracurriculars that you were participating in, and if you want to like elaborate on like maybe one or two of them?
So first I was a staff member of Korean American Student Association, which is CASA.
Mhm.
Yeah, and since I'm Korean, so I enjoyed being part of the cultural aspect of like my heritage, I guess.
Mhm.
And being a staff member really helped me like manage my time and be in the meeting on time because I'm pretty bad at like being on time for something. So that was a good experience. And also, I was in a pre-law frat in our school, and even though I was there for 2 quarters, I met a lot of good people. I got a good connection. One of the alums actually posted this internship opportunities on Facebook, and I ended up getting it. So it was a really good experience.
Mhm.
And what else? Oh, I was part of BSA my winter quarter of sophomore year, and even though like I was only there for about 1 or 2 months, it was I made a really good friends, and they're all really nice. And I also was part of the RHA International Student Engagement Chair. So I got to really engage with international students in that one hall, residence hall that I was part of. Yeah, that was it, I think.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. No, I just wondered because another thing I wanted to follow was like obviously you had a couple extracurriculars and I know some of them were obviously cut short because of the whole situation right now. But
Yeah.
um, transferring from going to UCSB to UCLA means that you kind of have to like start new with extracurriculars. Like some of them you can't really carry over. Has that ever been like a concern for you? Kind of like people are like, oh, if you're going to be in a club or organization, you should be committed for like a long period of time. So has that ever worried you that you kind of have to start over essentially in that regard?
Um, I wasn't that worried about it, but the only thing I was worried. Oh, I forgot to mention that I was also part of the breaking team of
Oh,
UCSB. So regarding that, I looked up some clubs in UCLA, and they didn't have a breaking specific club.
mhm.
So I was worried that like I if I join just ambiguous hip hop club, I'm not gonna really like focus on breaking. So that's what is like concerning because I really want to develop more skills in breaking.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's really cool that you had those different opportunities. I know obviously the activities you have at UCLA will be pretty different, but just as diverse as probably what you had at UCSB. But yeah, I think it's just cool that at least for you, it's not the biggest concern in the world. I think there's still a chance for you to like join those clubs, do
Yeah.
stuff, make stuff out of it. Yeah, I think it's great. I think another thing to mention is that obviously you mentioned you're from Boston, Massachusetts, which is pretty much the East Coast of the United States, versus California being the West Coast. And then the UC system is California's public
Hmm.
school system. So if you're like an out-of-state student going to a public school system that's not your respective state, there's a lot of tuition increases, a lot of differences between doing that. I guess when you were applying or when you decided to commit to UCSB, I guess first and foremost,
Hmm.
did that ever worry you, like the tuition price or like just kind of being an out-of-state student going to a public school that wasn't your respective like home state?
Um, actually, UC schools were actually my cheaper options because
Really?
since I'm international student, I can't get any tuition reduction in any C school. So also most of the school that I applied to were private schools, which are just they're just crazily expensive, and they can't give me any aids. I barely got any scholarship from schools. So since UC was like 10K cheaper than other private schools, it was just better option for my parents financially. I also got like a couple of scholarship from outside,
Mhm.
which wasn't enough, but like it was still a big help for me to pay for these tuition because it was just expensive.
Yeah.
So I wasn't I wasn't that worried about that like paying a lot of tuition than an NSTE student.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. I mean, private schools obviously a lot more expensive than in-state public schools, but I think it's, kind of interesting, like you mentioned, that it didn't really make the biggest difference. It's actually surprised me that the UC schools ended up being cheaper for you
Mhm.
than the privates. I would have expected a little, like, I wouldn't expect a big difference, but I expected it to be the other way around. So, I think that's still good. I think it's still good for out-of-state students to apply. You just kind of have to know that you are going to be paying a little bit more than
Mhm.
students. Let's say you apply to, I don't know, random school like Texas, some public school in Texas. You're going to be paying a lot more than
Yeah.
apply at Texas home. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's cool that at least you're still able to make the most out of it, and obviously it's great that you had scholarship on the side as well, too.
Mhm.
Yeah. With public schools, they are a lot larger in population compared to a private school. Just student
Yeah.
population is a lot. It's huge. So in regards to that, when you have your lecture classes, are your class populations pretty big? And if so, do you think that that kind of has like a not a like I guess like does it have like a slight detriment towards you being able to communicate with the professor or anything like associating in a closer connection?
Yeah, definitely, because I really didn't like I couldn't get used to the big class atmosphere because all my lower div classes were a big class. Some of my classes were like 700 students
Oh
in
wow.
just one big hall.
Hmm.
And I really couldn't focus on my lower divs classes because they're big. So that kind of affected my GPA too. And I ended up getting way better score on my upper divs, which are way smaller than lower divs. So yeah, I still I'm still not a big fan of big classes, but since I didn't take that much lower div classes because I even fulfill my G's with upper div classes.
Hmm.
It wasn't a big detriment to my GPA or my academics because I took few lower div classes.
All right, yeah, no, and that's great to hear. I know, especially like a lot of public school students I know, my friends would be like, oh yeah, they have really large classes compared to
Mhm.
my lower divs at most will have like maybe 200 per a
Yeah.
large lecture room. That's what I'll consider like the largest. But yeah, I think 700. That's crazy. I can't imagine an auditorium that would fit that many students. I don't even think USC has an auditorium that fits that many people at once. So yeah, I think it's really interesting just hearing the different classroom environments that students have from different schools. Yeah, and I think just kind of to wrap up the entire video here, if you could give advice to high school students, whether that be about the college application process, college lifestyle, or just life in general, what would you tell them?
I just wanted to tell them not to stress too much because since I transferred to another institution, honestly, like it's not the end of the world. Like you can, even if you don't get into your dream school, you always have a second chance of transferring. And also, I wanted to tell them that to really enjoy the college life because, some people just study, 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 and that's not part of the college experience. It's more about really engaging with a lot of people from different countries, states, different environment in general. And also, yeah, there are so many like good clubs that people can engage in. So really take advantage of that. And what else? I guess work hard, play hard. Like just balance those two well because one can fall off and the other can fall off too.
Yeah. No, I think that was great. I definitely agree with you. I think obviously it seems ironic to say like don't stress too much, but it's true. Like there's things will happen for a reason. Like if you can't like the college application isn't it's like not a cookie cutter mold that everyone can fit into. So it doesn't work out in your favor. Just kind of you kind of have to play with the cards that you're dealt. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would say that's a big thing. But yeah, in college, have fun. I know, especially for students who are like pre-med, pre-law, or like they need
Yeah.
the high GPA for grad schools. Yeah, you're gonna have to try a little bit hard in school. But that doesn't mean those students can't have fun. There's those clubs like you said mentioned are a good way to have fun. Doesn't always have to be academic related
Mm-hmm.
club. And like you said, you have your your whole breaking dance like group and stuff like that. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say yeah, definitely have fun and stuff like that. But other than that, I just want to say thanks so much, Rena, for coming on and talking with us. We definitely appreciate it, and obviously we hope that everyone that watches this video gets a lot of information out of it. So yeah, other than that, I guess thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks.